I never thought a piece of metal could hold so much weight. But as I sat in that conference room on Tuesday morning, watching Veronica Ashford's perfectly manicured finger point at my mother's ring, I felt the full burden of everything I'd been carrying for 3 years. "Is that supposed to be a sapphire?" Her voice cut through the morning briefing like broken glass. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. "Amber, sweetie, where did you get that tragic little thing?" "Goodwill?" My throat closed. The ring suddenly felt hot against my skin, like it was burning a brand into my finger. I wanted to pull my hand under the table, hide it away, but moving felt impossible. Everyone was staring now. The morning sun streaming through the conference room windows made the stones sparkle a deep blue that had once made my mother's eyes light up when she wore it. "I'm sorry, Veronica leaned forward, her designer blazer rustling with the movement. "I couldn't help but notice you've been wearing that same outfit rotation for, 3 months now? The clearance rack collection from Target? And now this adorable attempt at jewelry. It's just so." She paused, her lips curling into something that might have looked like a smile to someone who didn't know her. "Precious." Laughter rippled around the table. Not from everyone. Nina, 2 seats down, looked horrified, and a few others studied their laptops with sudden intensity. But Veronica's usual crowd ate it up. Jennifer from marketing actually snorted. "It's vintage," I heard myself say. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Vintage." Veronica repeated the word like it tasted funny. "Is that what we're calling thrift store finds now? Because, honey, I hate to break it to you, but that setting looks like it came from one of those coin-operated machines at the grocery store. You know, the ones where you put in a quarter and hope for the best." More laughter. Louder this time. Gerald Ashford, Veronica's father and the company's vice president, sat at the head of the table reviewing his notes. He glanced up at the commotion, saw his daughter performing, and returned to his papers without a word. That lack of response was its own form of approval. "I mean, if you're going to play dress-up with fake jewelry," Veronica continued, really warming to her audience now, "at least commit to the bit. Get yourself a whole collection of dollar store diamonds. Make it a statement. This sad little solo act is just—" She waved her hand dismissively, and her actual sapphire bracelet, the real kind that probably cost more than my yearly salary, caught the light. "Depressing." My face burned. I looked down at the ring, at the intricate filigree work along the band that had been crafted by hands that knew what they were doing. The sapphire wasn't large, but it was deep and clear, and if you looked closely, you could see facets cut with precision that modern jewelers rarely bothered with anymore. My father had told me once that this stone had a story, something about European royalty, and an auction in London, and a love so profound he'd spent an amount I couldn't fathom to capture it in physical form. But I couldn't say any of that. I'd made a promise 3 years ago, and I kept my promises. "It probably came from a dead person's estate sale," Veronica added, and something in her voice had shifted from performative cruelty to genuine disdain. "You know, when someone dies and their family sells off all their junk because nobody actually wants it. That's the vibe I'm getting. Donation pile jewelry." My fingers curled into a fist under the table. She was closer to the truth than she knew, and somehow that made it worse. This ring had belonged to someone who died my mother, who'd worn it every day until the car accident that took her from us, who'd touched it the way I did now, spinning it absently when she was thinking, pressing it against her lips when she was worried, letting it catch the light when she was happy. "Can we please get back to the quarterly projections?" Timothy, from finance, ventured carefully. He wasn't defending me. Nobody ever defended me, but at least he was trying to move on. Of course. Veronica sat back in her chair, satisfied. I just wanted to make sure Amber knew that if she needed some fashion advice, I'd be happy to take her shopping somewhere appropriate. Somewhere that doesn't involve hoping the previous owner's bad luck doesn't come with the accessories. The meeting continued. Numbers flashed on the projector screen. People discussed market trends and client retention rates. I sat there feeling like my skin had been peeled off, like everyone could see straight through to all the parts of me I kept hidden. When Gerald finally dismissed us, I stood on shaking legs. The ring felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. As I gathered my notepad and pen, Veronica swept past me, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume. "Really though, Amber?" she said quietly. Just for me. If you're going to work at a place like Preston and Associates, you need to at least look like you belong here. That charity shop aesthetic might work at some non-profit, but here, it's embarrassing. For you and honestly, for the rest of us who have to look at it. She walked away before I could respond. Not that I had a response ready. 3 years at this company, and I'd never found the right words to stop her. Nina appeared at my elbow as the conference room emptied. I hate her, she whispered fiercely. I hate her so much. It's fine, I said automatically. It's not fine. None of this is fine. You should report her to HR. Her dad's the VP, Nina. HR isn't going to do anything. I headed for the door, desperate to be anywhere else. Then you should tell her off. Stand up for yourself. Tell her what? I turned to face my only friend in this building. Tell her the truth? Tell her who I really am? That's not going to happen. Nina's expression softened. She didn't know the whole story, nobody did, but she knew enough to understand I had my reasons for keeping quiet. I just wish you didn't have to take this, she said. I looked down at the ring again. In the hallway's fluorescent lighting, it looked darker, less brilliant than it had in the conference room. Just a band of metal and a blue stone that meant everything to me and nothing to anyone else. Some battles aren't worth revealing who you really are, I told Nina. It was something I'd learned the hard way, something that had kept me safe and small and invisible for 3 years. But as I walked back to my cubicle, past Veronica's office where I could hear her laughing with her friends about something, past Gerald's door where he was probably already forgetting the whole incident, past all the people who looked through me like I was made of glass, I felt something shift. My father's words echoed in my memory, spoken on the day he'd given me this ring to keep. This ring has more history than most people's entire families. Wear it with pride but never explain it to those who don't deserve to know. I'd worn it with quiet dignity. I'd protected its secrets and mine. But pride? That was harder to hold on to when someone spent every day trying to strip it away. I sat at my desk and pulled up the financial analysis I'd been working on. Numbers calmed me. Logic made sense when people didn't. And if I focused hard enough on the spreadsheets, I could almost forget the sound of Veronica's laughter. Almost forget the weight of everything I carried alone. Almost. The bathroom mirror showed me a face I barely recognized. Red-rimmed eyes, blotchy cheeks, lips pressed so tight they'd gone white. I turned on the faucet and let cold water run over my hands, watching it swirl down the drain like I wished this entire morning would disappear. The ring glinted under the harsh bathroom lights. I touched it gently, tracing the delicate metalwork that framed the sapphire. My mother used to do the same thing, run her fingers along the band when she was thinking or upset. I'd watched her do it 1,000 times before the accident, before everything ended. I was 13 when the car skidded off that wet road, 13 when I lost my mother and watched my father crumble into someone I didn't recognize. Lawrence Collins, the name that had once commanded boardrooms and moved markets, became a ghost in his own house. He stopped going to the office, stopped taking calls, stopped being the man who'd built an empire from nothing but intelligence and instinct. The house got quieter. Staff started leaving. My father would spend days in his study, door locked, and I'd sit outside in the hallway doing homework because being near him felt better than being alone, even if there was a door between us. On my 18th birthday, he called me into that study. The room smelled like old books and the whiskey he'd started drinking too much of. He looked older than he should have, grey creeping into his dark hair, lines carved deep around his eyes. I can't do this anymore, he'd said. Not as an apology, just as a fact. He set up a trust fund enough to pay for college, for an apartment, for a simple life. Nothing extravagant. Then he gave me the ring. My mother's ring. The one he'd bought her before I was born. Before the massive house, and the fleet of cars and the life most people only dreamed about. Build something, on your own, he'd told me. Don't use my name. Don't tell people who you are. Promise me, Amber. Promise me you'll succeed because of who you are, not whose daughter you are. I'd promised. What else could I do? He was falling apart, and I was 18 and terrified, and grieving too. So I took the ring, and the money, and the promise, and I left. That was 10 years ago. I'd kept that promise through college, through my first terrible job, through every moment of the past 3 years at Preston and Associates. I'd watched Veronica mock my clothes and my quiet nature and everything about me. And I'd never once said the words that would make it all stop, because some part of me believed my father was right. If I succeeded as myself, it would mean something. It would prove I was more than just his daughter. It would prove I deserved to exist in my own right. But standing in this bathroom, staring at my reflection, I wondered what exactly I was proving. That I could take abuse? That I could shrink myself small enough to fit into spaces where I wasn't wanted? That I could protect a secret that was slowly suffocating me? The bathroom door swung open. I quickly wiped at my face, but it was just Nina. "I brought you coffee," she said softly, holding out a paper cup. The good kind from the place down the street, not the sludge from the break room. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." She leaned against the counter beside me. "But Veronica's still out there bragging about her performance in the meeting, and I figured you needed a minute." I took the coffee. It was still hot, steam rising from the small opening in the lid. "Thank you. She's getting worse, you know. This isn't normal workplace stuff anymore. It's targeted harassment." Nina's voice was careful, like she was testing how much she could say. "Last week, she took credit for your entire market analysis. Today, she humiliated you in front of everyone. What's it going to be next week? I'll handle it." "How? By sitting there and taking it?" Nina's frustration leaked through. She was a good person, maybe too good for a place like this. "You're brilliant, Amber. Everyone who actually pays attention knows it. Your financial models are the best in the department. You catch errors nobody else sees, but you just let her walk all over you. Because fighting back means explaining. Explaining means breaking my promise. Breaking my promise means losing the last connection I have to my father, even if that connection is just keeping my word to a man I haven't spoken to in 3 years. But I couldn't say any of that. "Some battles aren't worth fighting," I said instead. Nina sighed. "I don't understand you sometimes, but I'm here if you need me, okay?" After she left, I stayed in the bathroom for another minute, then 2, then 5. Finally, I forced myself to go back to my desk. The afternoon crawled by like something wounded. Veronica sent an email chain that included half the office, making subtle digs about maintaining professional standards and representing the company appropriately. I wasn't mentioned by name, but everyone knew. At 3 o'clock, she walked past my cubicle with Jennifer and 2 other members of her usual group. They were talking just loud enough for me to hear. "I'm just saying, if you can't afford to dress professionally, maybe consulting isn't the right field. Some people are better suited for non-profit work. Or retail." "Nothing wrong with retail. Laughter. Always laughter." Gerald Ashford walked past 20 minutes later. He glanced at me, and for just a second, I thought I saw something like discomfort in his eyes. Like maybe he knew what his daughter was doing and felt bad about it, but he kept walking. And that discomfort, if it had been there at all, wasn't enough to make him act. I stayed late that night, long after most people had gone home. The office was quieter then, easier to breathe in. I pulled up the financial projections for the Whitmore account, the huge potential contract everyone was whispering about. Preston and Associates wanted to land Theodore Whitmore as a client more than anything. His company was worth billions, and his endorsement could transform the firm's reputation. The numbers were wrong. Not drastically, but enough that someone like Whitmore would notice. Interest calculations off by 0.5 percentage point. Risk assessments that didn't account for recent market volatility. Small errors that would add up to big problems. I fixed them. Line by line, formula by formula. Not because anyone would thank me. Veronica would probably present this work tomorrow as her own. But because the work mattered to me, even when nothing else did. By the time I finished, it was past 9. The cleaning crew was working their way through the floor, emptying trash cans and vacuuming carpets. I saved the file, backed it up, and finally let myself leave. On the subway ride home, I twisted the ring around my finger. My mother's ring. My father's gift. My secret. I wondered, not for the first time, if keeping promises was worth this much pain. If my father would even care that I'd kept his rules, disappeared into anonymity, succeeded quietly while being treated like I didn't matter. But I'd made a promise, and the daughter of Lawrence Collins kept her promises. Even when they were killing her. The office erupted at 8:45 the next morning. I'd barely set down my bag when Nina rushed over, her eyes wide with something between excitement and panic. "Whitmore's coming today. Like, right now, this morning." My stomach dropped. "Theodore Whitmore? The Whitmore Industries, Theodore Whitmore?" "Yes." Apparently he moved up his visit. "Didn't give us any warning. Gerald's losing his mind." She lowered her voice. "They're pulling together a presentation team right now." I looked across the office floor and saw exactly what she meant. Gerald stood outside the main conference room, tie slightly crooked, snapping orders at anyone within earshot. Veronica was already in full performance mode, directing people like she was conducting an orchestra. The energy felt frantic, desperate. "All hands meeting in 5 minutes," Nina said. "Everyone has to be there." The conference room filled quickly. Gerald stood at the front, trying to project calm authority, while his forehead gleamed with sweat. "As you've all heard, Mr. Whitmore has adjusted his timeline. He'll be here within the hour to evaluate our firm for a potential partnership. This contract would be worth approximately $300 million over 5 years. Murmurs rippled through the room. $300 million. That was more than most of us would see in multiple lifetimes. "Veronica will lead the presentation team," Gerald continued. "Of course she would. She'll be supported by Timothy, Jennifer, and Robert. The rest of you will maintain normal operations but be available if needed. Mr. Whitmore may want to tour the facilities, see how we actually work. So everyone stays sharp, stays professional, stays visible." His eyes swept the room and landed on me for just a second. I saw the thought cross his face. Should I even be visible right now? After yesterday? But he moved on without comment. "Veronica, you have 40 minutes to finalize the presentation." "Already done, Dad." She smiled brightly. "I've been working on the Whitmore pitch for weeks. We're completely prepared." Liar. I'd rebuilt that entire financial model last night because her version was full of holes. But I stayed quiet. What was the point? We scattered back to our desks. I tried to focus on routine work, but concentration was impossible. The entire office buzzed with nervous energy. People straightened their desks, adjusted their clothes, practiced their professional smiles. Even Nina, who rarely cared about impressing higher-ups, checked her appearance 3 times. At 9:30, the elevator chimed. Gerald hurried to greet our visitor, and we all tried to look busy while desperately wanting to see. Theodore Whitmore stepped onto our floor like he owned it. Probably because men like him owned most things. He was older than I expected, late 60s, maybe with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to catalogue everything they touched. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, but he wore it casually, like it was just clothes. 2 people flanked him. Security, I guessed, from the way they moved and watched. "Mr. Whitmore, welcome to Preston and Associates." Gerald's voice carried across the floor, too loud, too eager. "We're thrilled to have this opportunity to present our proposal. Let's see what you've prepared." Whitmore's voice was gravelly, controlled. Not warm, but not cold either. Just assessing. They disappeared into the conference room. The glass walls let us see in Veronica standing at the front, animated and confident, gesturing at slides that contained work I'd done. Timothy and Jennifer nodded along like backup singers. I turned back to my computer screen. This wasn't my world. I'd learned that lesson over and over. An hour passed. The presentation continued. Through the glass, I could see Whitmore's expression remain neutral. Not impressed, not disappointed. Just listening, watching, calculating. Then he stood, said something to Gerald, and walked out of the conference room. The entire office tensed. Was he leaving? Had we failed already? But no. He was walking through the office floor, his security detail trailing behind. Gerald scrambled to follow, trying to narrate something about our talented team and our collaborative environment. Whitmore ignored him, moving slowly between cubicles, studying how people actually worked. He paused at desks. glanced at computer screens, observed the real operations behind the polished presentation. Several people noticed him and straightened up, suddenly aware they were being evaluated. I kept my head down, focusing on the spreadsheet in front of me. I didn't need Theodore Whitmore's attention. I didn't need anyone's attention. Invisible was safer, but I had this habit when I was concentrating, twisting my ring, spinning it around my finger while I thought through problems. It helped me focus. My mother used to do the same thing, and I'd inherited the gesture along with the jewelry. I was deep into a complicated formula when I felt it, that sensation of being watched. I looked up. Theodore Whitmore stood 3 feet from my cubicle, not moving, not speaking, just staring at my hand, at my ring. His face had gone completely white, like someone had drained all the blood from it in an instant. His mouth opened slightly. One of his security people stepped closer, concerned by whatever they were seeing in their boss's expression. My heart started pounding. Why was he looking at me like that? Like he'd seen something impossible? That ring. His voice came out rough, strained. Where did you get that ring? The office noise seemed to fade away. I was aware of people turning, noticing, but they felt distant. All I could see was this powerful man staring at my mother's ring like it was a ghost. My throat felt tight. Years of privacy, instincts screamed at me to deflect, to lie, to protect the secret. It was my mother's. Your mother's. He repeated the words slowly, like he was trying to make sense of them. His hand was shaking, actually shaking. Where did your mother get it? My father gave it to her. The words came out barely above a whisper. Whitmore took a step closer. Gerald appeared at his elbow, confused and concerned. Mr. Whitmore, is everything. Your father's name. Whitmore cut him off without even glancing in his direction. His eyes were locked on mine, intense and desperate. I need to know your father's name. Every instinct told me to run, to refuse, to keep the promise I'd kept for 10 years. But something in his face, the shock, the recognition, the impossible hope unlocked something in me. Lawrence Collins, I said. For a moment, nothing happened. Whitmore just stood there, frozen, processing. Then he screamed. Not a shout, a scream. Sharp and shocked and so loud that everyone on the entire floor jumped. Then they have no idea who you are. His voice boomed across the office, echoing off the walls, shattering the professional silence. People stood up from their desks. Heads popped out of offices. Even through the conference room glass, I could see Veronica's face turn toward the sound. And Theodore Whitmore stood there, staring at me like I'd just rewritten everything he thought he knew about the world. The silence that followed felt like the office itself was holding its breath. Then everything exploded into motion at once. Gerald rushed over, his face cycling through confusion and concern, and something close to fear. Mr. Whitmore, I don't understand what— Lawrence Collins is your father? Whitmore's voice shook as he spoke, still staring at me like I might vanish if he blinked. The Lawrence Collins? I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. All I could do was nod. Veronica appeared then, pushing through the small crowd that was forming. What's going on? Dad, what's happening? But Whitmore didn't acknowledge her. He was already talking, the words pouring out fast and urgent. Lawrence Collins was the greatest venture capitalist of his generation, maybe of any generation. He built Whitmore Industries from nothing. I had an idea, and $12,000. Lawrence saw something in it, invested everything he had, and turned my small operation into a billion-dollar company. People were gathering now. The entire office was watching. Nina stood by her desk, hands pressed to her mouth. Timothy and Jennifer had emerged from the conference room, and I sat there, trapped in my cubicle, feeling my carefully constructed walls crumbling. He had the golden touch, Whitmore continued, addressing the crowd now more than just me. Every investment he made succeeded. Not because he was lucky, because he was brilliant. His strategies are still taught at Harvard Business School. His risk assessment models revolutionized the industry. And then, 15 years ago, after a family tragedy, he just disappeared. My chest felt tight. Hearing someone else tell my father's story felt like being stripped naked in front of everyone. Some people thought he died, Whitmore said quietly. Others thought he'd lost his mind, but no one knew the truth. He just vanished from the business world completely. His eyes returned to me. I've managed his investments for 15 years. He asked me to handle his assets, to respect his privacy, to never reveal where he'd gone or what he was doing. I kept that promise, but I never knew about a daughter. This is ridiculous. Veronica's voice cut through sharp and defensive. She's making this up. She works in a cubicle wearing thrift store clothes. She can't be. The ring. Whitmore turned to her, and his expression made her take a step back. That ring she's wearing. I was there when Lawrence bought it. He moved closer to my desk, and instinctively I held up my hand so he could see it better. His eyes went distant, remembering. London. 17 years ago. We'd just closed a major deal, and Lawrence was celebrating. There was an estate auction at Christie's items from European aristocracy, and there was this ring. He gestured at my hand. It belonged to the Duchess of Cambridge in the 1890 seconds. The sapphire was mined in Kashmir, and the setting was designed by a jeweller whose work is in museums now. The office was completely silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to have stopped humming. Lawrence saw it and said it was perfect for your mother, that it matched her grace, her elegance, her strength. The bidding went high, very high, but Lawrence wouldn't stop. Whitmore's voice softened. He paid $2.3 million for that ring. The number hit like a physical blow. I heard someone gasp. Veronica made a choking sound. $2.3 million. Thrift store ring. Whitmore's voice turned cold as he looked at Veronica. That's what you called it yesterday, isn't it? In the meeting? When you humiliated this woman in front of 20 colleagues. Veronica's face went from red to white to grey. I didn't know, I thought. You didn't think. Whitmore's contempt was sharp enough to cut. You saw someone you perceived as beneath you, and you decided cruelty was entertainment. Gerald tried to intervene, his voice conciliating. Mr. Whitmore, I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding. Veronica didn't mean. I was here early this morning, Whitmore interrupted, walking through the building before anyone expected me. I passed your conference room during yesterday's meeting. I heard every word your daughter said, every insult, every calculated humiliation. His gaze moved to Gerald. And I watched you sit there and do nothing. The vice president's face crumbled. This wasn't just about embarrassment anymore. This was about $300 million walking away. Whitmore turned back to me. His expression had shifted from shock to something gentler, sadder. Your father and I were best friends. When he withdrew from the world, when he asked me to take over managing his assets, I tried to respect his grief. I knew he'd lost his wife. I didn't know he had a daughter he was protecting, teaching, preparing for the world in his own way. He wanted me to succeed on my own, I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange, distant, without his name, without his money. He wanted to know if I could build something myself. And you have. Whitmore's smile was genuine. Do you know what the Collins Trust is worth now? With 15 years of compound returns, strategic reinvestment, and the growth of his existing portfolio, I shook my head. My father had given me enough to live on, enough to be independent. I'd never asked about the rest, never wanted to know. That would have felt like breaking the promise. $3.7 billion. The number didn't feel real. It was too large, too abstract, like hearing about distances between stars. You're not just Lawrence Collins' daughter, Amber. You're one of the wealthiest women in the country, whether you knew it or not, whether you wanted it or not. Whitmore pulled out his phone. And your father needs to know what's happened to you here. He needs to know what you've endured while keeping your promise to him. No, wait. Panic flooded through me. I hadn't spoken to my father in 3 years. 3 years of silence, of keeping his rules, of being what he asked me to be. What would he think of all this? Of his secret being exposed? Of his wishes being destroyed in one terrible moment? But Whitmore was already dialing. Lawrence has been following your career through me. He knows you work here. He knows about your brilliant analyses, your integrity, your strength. He's so proud of you, even from a distance. But he doesn't know about this. His gesture encompassed the office, Veronica's stricken face, The years of small cruelties. The phone rang once, twice. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years answered. "Theodore?" My father's voice. Older than I remembered, rougher, but unmistakably him. And hearing it after so long made something break open inside my chest. "Lawrence," Whitmore said gently, "I'm here with your daughter. There's something you need to know." Around me, the office remained frozen. Veronica looked like she might be sick. Gerald's career was visibly ending in real time. Nina had tears streaming down her face, and I sat in my small cubicle, wearing my mother's $2 million ring, while the life I'd carefully built for 10 years shattered into pieces I couldn't begin to put back together. Whitmore stepped into Gerald's office with me, closing the door on the chaos outside. Through the glass walls, I could see the entire office watching, but at least we had the illusion of privacy. "Lawrence, your daughter has been working at Preston and Associates for 3 years, Whitmore said into the phone. And she's been subjected to systematic workplace harassment by the vice president's daughter. I couldn't hear my father's response, but I saw Whitmore's expression tighten. "Yes, I'm certain. I witnessed it myself yesterday. Public humiliation about her clothing, her background, and particularly about the ring you gave her mother. The ring she wears every day." A pause. "They called it a thrift store trinket, Lawrence." They laughed at her. Whitmore held out the phone to me. "He wants to talk to you." My hand shook as I took it. For a moment, I couldn't make myself speak. 3 years of silence stretched between us like an ocean. "Amber!" My father's voice cracked. "Is that really you?" "Hi, Dad." 2 words, and suddenly I was 13 again, sitting outside his locked study door. "I'm so sorry." He was crying. I could hear it. "I thought I was teaching you strength. I thought making you independent would protect you. But I just left you alone." "You didn't leave me alone. I made a promise. I kept it." "You shouldn't have had to." His breath hitched. "Theodore's been sending me reports." He didn't know I asked him to watch over you. He thought he was just keeping me informed about the company. "But I've seen your work, sweetheart. Your financial models are extraordinary. You're brilliant. Just like I knew you would be." Tears burned behind my eyes. "I didn't use your name. I did it myself. I know you did, and I'm so proud of you. But I was wrong to ask you to hide. Wrong to make you carry that secret alone. Wrong to think that success without acknowledgement was somehow more pure." He paused. "Your mother would be furious with me." That made me laugh despite everything, because it was true. Mum had never believed in unnecessary suffering. She would have hated watching me endure Veronica's cruelty in silence. "Things are going to change now," Dad said quietly. "Your cover is gone. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's time for both of us to stop hiding." We talked for 10 more minutes. About the years apart. About his grief and isolation. About the life he'd been living in seclusion, managing investments remotely, avoiding the world that reminded him of what he'd lost. And about his decision, made right there on the phone, to finally come back. When I handed the phone back to Whitmore, I felt lighter and heavier all at once. "He's coming to the city," Whitmore told me after finishing the call. "He wants to see you. Tonight, if possible." I nodded, unable to speak past the knot in my throat. We emerged from the office to find controlled pandemonium. Gerald stood near the conference room, surrounded by senior partners who'd apparently been summoned. Their expressions ranged from anger to panic. Veronica sat at her desk, not working, just staring at nothing. Whitmore addressed the room, his voice carrying easily. "Preston and Associates will not be receiving the Whitmore Industries contract. I cannot in good conscience partner with a firm that tolerates the treatment I've witnessed here." Gerald made a desperate sound. "Mr. Whitmore, please, if you'd just allow us to explain." "Explain what? That you sat in a meeting while your daughter publicly mocked an employee? That you've allowed a toxic work environment to flourish because confronting it was inconvenient?" Whitmore's tone could have frozen water. "I built my company on integrity and respect. I won't compromise those values now. $300 million, gone, just like that." One of the senior partners stepped forward. "Mr. Ashford, my office. Now." Gerald followed like a man walking to his execution. Whitmore turned to Veronica. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You should know, Whitmore said quietly, that this story will spread. The business community is small. What happened here today, how you treated Lawrence Collins' daughter, how you mocked a ring worth more than you'll earn in a decade, people will hear about it. Your reputation is damaged beyond what your father's position can repair. Veronica opened her mouth, then closed it. What could she possibly say? You can apologize to Amber if you'd like, Whitmore continued, though I suspect you're more sorry you got caught than sorry for your actions. She looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time in 3 years. I saw fear there, and embarrassment, and something that might have been genuine remorse buried deep. But mostly I saw someone realizing that cruelty had consequences. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wanted to feel triumphant, vindicated, but mostly I just felt tired. I know, I said, and that was all. Nina approached carefully after Whitmore moved away to speak with the senior partners. She hugged me without asking permission, holding on tight. You're a billionaire, she whispered. An actual billionaire. And you've been sitting next to me eating grocery store sandwiches for 3 years. The sandwiches were good, I said, and she laughed through her tears. Other colleagues approached with careful respect, people who'd ignored me for years, suddenly remembering every conversation we'd had. I accepted their attention with polite distance. I knew what this was, not genuine connection, just recalibration based on new information. By noon, Gerald had been called into a meeting with the board. By 2 o'clock, rumors said he was being asked to resign. Veronica left the office at 3, carrying a box of her belongings. She didn't look at anyone as she walked to the elevator. I spent the afternoon gathering my own things. Not because I was fired, several people had assured me I could stay, that changes were coming, that things would be different. But I was done with this place. Done with being small. Done with hiding. Nina helped me pack, reminiscing about the good moments we'd shared. What are you going to do now? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. See my father. Figure out who I am when I'm not keeping secrets. Maybe build something new. Whatever it is, you'll be amazing at it. At 5 o'clock, Whitmore found me by my empty cubicle. Ready? Ready for what? Your father's already on his way to the city. I told him I'd bring you to dinner. He smiled. If that's okay with you. I looked around the office one last time. At the cubicle where I'd spent 3 years proving myself to people who didn't care. At the conference room where Veronica had tried to break me. At the space I'd occupied while keeping a promise that had cost me so much. Then I picked up my bag and followed Whitmore to the elevator. In the car, I twisted my mother's ring, my $2 million inheritance, my hidden treasure, my constant reminder of everything I'd lost and kept. The sapphire caught the afternoon light, throwing blue shadows across my hands. Your father asked me to tell you something, Whitmore said as we drove. He said to tell you that you kept your promise. You proved you could succeed on your own, and now it's time to discover what you can do without limits. The city passed by outside the window. Somewhere in it, my father was waiting. After 3 years of silence, we'd have dinner. We'd talk. We'd figure out what came next. I didn't know what my future looked like. Didn't know if I'd join my father's world or build my own empire, or find some entirely different path. But for the first time in years, I didn't have to hide. Didn't have to diminish myself. Didn't have to apologize for existing. The ring sparkled on my finger, no longer a secret I guarded, but a bridge between who I'd been and who I was becoming. I was Amber Collins, daughter of Lawrence Collins, keeper of promises, survivor of cruelty, and finally, completely, undeniably, free.